What is up, guys? My name is Fran and welcome back to the channel, and this is the brand new Mac Mini powered by the Apple M1 processor. And in today's video, we're going to be figuring out if this thing is any good. But before we begin this video, as I just mentioned a moment ago, my name is Fran, and here on the channel I make videos all about technology. I do reviews, I do opinion pieces, and sometimes we even check out brand new Mac Minis. So if you like what you see in today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So today is the day, at least at the time of recording this video, when the review embargo lifts for the Macintosh computers powered by the M1 processor. Now I've watched a number of those reviews, and I've got to say for the most part, they've been pretty positive. But I also went out and picked up my own. This is one of two. I did also pick up the 13-inch MacBook Pro. And what I'm going to be doing in today's video is just simply, as you guys can see, I haven't even opened the box yet, but I'm going to go ahead and unbox this thing. I'm going to get it hooked up, and I'm actually going to see if this thing is living up to all the hype that I've seen in all of the reviews earlier in the day. And keep in mind, this isn't going to be a full review or anything like that, but more of a first impressions. A first impressions of a skeptic of the Apple M1 processor. Alright, so it's been about 2 hours since I got my keyboard, my mouse, and my monitor all hooked up to my Apple Silicon based Mac Mini, and I've got to say, I'm extremely impressed. I've yet to run into a single x86 based application that will not run on this Apple Silicon Mac Mini, and I've got to say it's doing much better than I thought it would actually be doing. I did run into a couple of hiccups here or there, but I think that was due to the fact that this system needed to be updated to the latest version of Big Sur, as well as all the updates for Final Cut and other video-based applications. But ever since I've updated it, so far it's been running smooth as butter, and yeah, doing pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue doing a bunch more testing. I think I'm gonna have to pause this and pick it up again tomorrow when I've actually had maybe about 24 hours to really put this computer through its paces and then give you guys some of my thoughts. Alright, so it's been about 24 hours since I started using my Mac Mini powered by the M1 processor. I've got to be honest with you guys, it's been a bit of a roller coaster. A lot of ups and a lot of downs, and a lot of good and a lot of bad. So let me tell you guys about my experience. So last night when wrapping up recording for the evening, I did mention that I couldn't find a single x86 based application that would not run on my Apple Silicon Mac Mini. Now when resuming testing earlier this morning, I quickly realized that this wasn't the case. I actually ran into two different applications that gave me trouble running on Apple Silicon: Google Chrome and Final Cut Pro. And these two applications are absolutely critical to my workflow and definitely applications that I use on a day-to-day basis. So first, the issue with Google Chrome. Now I do want to preface this by saying that at the time of recording this video, I do believe this issue might have been resolved, but I haven't gotten a chance to actually test it out yet. Now the issue that I had with Google Chrome was I was running the Intel version of Google Chrome on top of Rosetta, and this browser continuously would crash on me every 10 to 15 minutes. And it actually would crash to the point where I wouldn't be able to recover my Windows even when I relaunched the browser. Now, earlier in the day, Google did end up releasing an Apple Silicon version of Google Chrome, which I assume would actually have resolved this issue, but then they later pulled the actual version, citing the fact that this version would actually crash out your system continuously. So, but at the time of recording this video, they have once again re-released an updated version of the Apple Silicon version of Google Chrome, but as I mentioned earlier, I haven't gotten a chance to test it out. And then there were the issues that I had with Final Cut Pro. Now Final Cut Pro as an application does actually run extremely well. Apple did a really good job of making a native Apple Silicon version of Final Cut Pro for the system. However, the issue that I ran into was after I ended up installing all of my plugins, as soon as I launched Final Cut Pro, I got a very long list of plugins that would not work on my Apple Silicon Macintosh computer because they simply just weren't compatible and they only would work on Intel Macintosh computers. Now surprisingly, a number of publishers in which I've actually purchased these plugins ended up releasing Apple Silicon updates throughout the day. It was pretty impressive. In the morning time I had 2 updates, then later on in the afternoon I had another update. It's really encouraging to see how fast developers are moving on getting these plugins working, but as of right now there is still a very long list of legacy plugins that I have that just simply will not work on Final Cut Pro. And then there are a number of other weird and quirky issues when it comes to the performance of the system. Like for example, this thing will completely lock on me when trying to do something as simple as copy a GIF off of the internet and paste it into iMessage. message, or even moving files around the actual hard drive, I'll get random lockups. Now, I will admit that this issue was a lot more prevalent before I updated to the latest version of Big Sur, where the lockups started to subside a little bit, but they are still present, and it definitely does make the entire system feel like it's running a little bit slow. There are also some weird issues when it comes to the video output of this Mac Mini, like for example, you're unable to attach a secondary external monitor, and you're also not able to attach it to an external recorder. My M1 Mac Mini seems to also preference first-party Apple peripherals, such as the Apple Magic Trackpad, Apple Magic Keyboard, and Apple Magic Mouse, because when attaching a third-party mouse, such as my Logitech MX Master 2S, which I've continuously and always used on my 16-inch MacBook Pro and other computers via Bluetooth, I ran into a number of connectivity issues where the mouse would actually just continuously drop out, and it would not work when going to the login screen. I'd automatically have to default to my Apple Magic Trackpad. Now, hopefully I don't sound too negative on the M1 Mac Mini, because in fact, I actually really like this system. I think it's got a ton of performance at a really affordable price. However, these are just some of the small quirks and problems that I haven't really seen a lot of other reviewers talking about that I felt like it was worth mentioning. Now, on that note, I do want to talk about some of the positive experiences I've had with the M1 Mac Mini, starting off with the performance. Now, of course, you've probably seen a number of benchmarks all over the internet. Now, go ahead and spare you guys the synthetic benchmarks. I'm going to try to save that for my full review, but for the most part, those benchmarks you've seen around the internet are true, especially when comparing it to an Intel-based Macintosh computer. I mean, the M1 just does a phenomenal job. But I definitely feel like synthetic benchmarks only tell half the story, with the other half of the story being in the real-world performance. Now, while using the M1 Mac Mini over the last 24 hours, I definitely can tell you when doing regular browsing the internet tasks, word processing, Zoom calls, Slack, all of those regular tasks the M1 Mac Mini can handle like a champ, and it's extremely fast and performed just as good as any other Intel Mac. But what's even more impressive is the fact that Apple engineers were capable of getting this type of performance out of a system with such a low TDP. I mean, at no point during any of my testing or any of my benchmarking did the fan kick up to an audible speed in the back of my Mac Mini. Now, of course, you can put your hand back there or put a piece of paper and you could definitely tell the fan was on, but it wasn't loud and obnoxious like all of my other Intel Macintosh computers. I mean, that was one of the main reasons why I decided to get rid of my last generation Mac Mini. It was just entirely too loud when doing any type of editing work. And the 16-inch MacBook Pro isn't much better. That's also one of the reasons why I aspire to replace my main editing station with the Mac Pro. But after looking at the performance of this M1 Mac Mini, I might have to reconsider that decision. So to wrap everything up, I'm gonna go ahead and echo what a lot of other people have been saying about the M1 processor. This is truly revolutionary. Apple has done an outstanding job when it comes to engineering this SoC and getting it to a low TDP and high performance. I can only imagine what they're gonna be doing with these laptops once I get my hands on my 13-inch MacBook Pro. I'll know more, but I just can only imagine the capabilities of what they're gonna actually be doing. Now, as other people have said, it still is sort of in a beta. It's not 100% perfect. I think after some maturity of about 1 year or so, we'll definitely start to see this be a platform where professionals and prosumers can actually move over to and truly feel confident that they won't run into any issues when it comes to the Apple Silicon processors. I also predict that while the Apple M1 SoC is a fantastic performer, it's not the only SoC that Apple has coming down the pipeline. They probably have an M1X or maybe an M2 that comes with more cores, it has more available unified RAM, or at least configurable with more unified memory, and also is just going to be an overall better performer than what we're actually seeing here in the M1. And then at that point, we'll have a more mature ecosystem with applications that support it, and we're really going to see some impressive stuff coming out of these Apple Silicon processors. But that is going to be it for my first impressions of the Apple M1 Apple Silicon ecosystem. Be sure to look out for the full review of this platform in the really near future. And also let me know down in the comment section below if there's anything you guys want me to cover specifically in that review. But with that being said, once again guys, my name is Fran. Thanks for checking out this video. If it's your first time to the channel, consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in my next one.